Emotional abuse in the workplace. What I've been writing about in this book and reflecting on for the past several years is described in the literature as emotional abuse in the workplace. Mosby's Medical, Nursing, and Allied Health Dictionary defines emotional abuse as the debasement of a person's feelings, which causes the individual to perceive himself or herself as inept, not cared for, and worthless. Many organizations have at least some leaders whose attitudes and behaviors debase employees on a daily basis. Leaders in various positions, from frontline supervisors to CEOs, are guilty. Disguised as an effort to motivate or manage employees, emotional abuse is often ingrained in organizational culture. A surprising number of employees have come to expect abuse from their leaders and are suspicious of those who choose not to lead in an abusive way. In this case, the employees are cautiously waiting for the abusive attitudes and behaviors of non-abusive leaders to surface. Ironically, organizations often reward individuals who adopt abusive attitudes and behaviors. However, abusive leaders are not effective leaders, as much as they and some of their colleagues and superiors might believe otherwise. Abuse is always detrimental to the well-being of both the employees and the organization. Plainly put, abusive leaders are adult bullies who have found an arena in which they can intimidate others without accountability. According to educator and workplace justice activist Pamela Lutgen-Sandvik, employee emotional abuse is repetitive, targeted, and destructive communication by more powerful members toward less powerful members in the workplace. Communication can be interpreted in a broad sense to include repetitive, targeted, and destructive behaviors, as well as statements. Abusive leaders may scream at employees, belittle employees, isolate employees, use aggressive language, damage property, withhold career advancement opportunities, and throw temper tantrums when they feel a loss of control. Needless to say, such behavior does not motivate employees to excel. Instead, it creates a hostile work environment and causes employees to think less of their leaders. By turns, employees can feel helpless against their leader's wrath, uncertain as to when the next tirade will erupt, and angry at having to take the brunt of their leader's anger. Sometimes employees will seek retaliation for the negative treatment they are receiving, and sometimes they will vent their anger instead on one another, so that abuse from above triggers emotional abuse among peers. The toxic cycle develops momentum, drawing in more and more people. It continues day after day in workplaces the world over, taking an incredible human toll. Abusive leaders, I've found, do whatever they believe is necessary to let employees know who the bosses are. On numerous occasions, I've seen leaders walking through an organization, looking for opportunities to intimidate employees and flaunt their power. I've seen employees become nervous and scurry around like rats because a certain boss was coming to their department. Other employees became physically sick. These adults were so fearful of the boss's wrath that they lost their composure at the very mention of his or her name. To be in his or her presence was traumatizing. How sad. I often wonder why emotional abuse is allowed to exist in organizations. If individuals are suffering emotional abuse outside of work, mental health experts recommend they speak up, draw their boundaries, and get help. If employees speak about their abuse in the workplace, however, an organizational consensus legitimizing the abuse typically kicks in, resulting in intensified abuse that no one seems able or willing to stop. An employee brave enough to defy the organizational consensus is likely to be labeled a troublemaker and removed from the workplace, whether directly or through the cumulative demoralizing effect of abuse. The cumulative effect often takes the form of a debilitating illness of one sort or another. Why is there a double standard when it comes to emotional abuse in the workplace? Who says that when employees enter the workplace, they give up their rights to respect and fair treatment? Why do many organizational leaders continue to abuse employees, supposedly to improve productivity and increase motivation, but without proven results? Don't these leaders realize that their negative attitudes and behaviors damage employees? Don't they see that the negative treatment of employees undermines organizational success? Having reflected carefully on each of these questions and others, I have found no plausible reason why emotional abuse should exist in any relationship. My conclusion is that abuse, whether at home or work, should not be tolerated. Period.